This video is a follow-on from the previous 19 videos dealing with price in the precious metals markets. If you haven't seen those videos, I'd recommend you doing so before watching this one. We're living in extraordinary times. For anyone who's been paying attention to geopolitics, they'll be aware that we are witnessing an almighty change in the world order, as it has been in operation since the end of World War II. The balance of power is shifting from the West to the East. The West is waning and the East is in the ascendency. Basically, the American empire is dying. It's in the process of losing its hegemony status. This means that the US and all its vassal states, so Japan, the UK, Europe, etc., are going to go through major upheaval sometime in the not too distant future. It might be helpful to think in terms of the fall of the Roman Empire. You might want to watch a video also done by Ray Dalio about empires. It's called Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. It's worth watching if you want to gain a good understanding of what's taking place. Let's now look at some important economic history. History is important. I would argue that it can teach us a thing or two about our situation today, because we need to know not just where we're at, but how we got here in order to better understand where we're headed. In 1973, the US authorities did a deal with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, or rather the royal family that ruled KSA, the House of Saud, basically getting KSA and other OPEC member countries to use dollars for their oil trades. This was called the petrodollar system. The system is more complicated than that. There are more aspects to it, but this is all we need to know for the purposes of this video. They set up the petrodollar system as a way of offsetting the effects of the ending of the gold standard, which happened in 1971 with the Nixon shock. In a way, the petrodollar system could be regarded as a replacement of sorts for the gold standard. Oil is the energy that powers so much of our modern world. Indeed, oil is the very lifeblood of the world economy. Without oil, the whole system would grind to a halt. Oil is therefore a very valuable commodity. This is one of the reasons why oil is referred to as black gold. In the early 1970s, the US administration realized that if they could link the dollar to oil, then they could support the value of the dollar. The petrodollar system then artificially raised the value of the dollar above the level that it would otherwise be. At this juncture, I should say there are two things that kept the dollar, and hence the US, in such a privileged position since the middle of the 20th century. The petrodollar system and the world reserve currency status both act as key supports for the dollar. For those of you listening to this who are more visually orientated, maybe you might want to imagine two great stone columns holding up a triangular plinth, like you see in ancient Greek architecture in, say, the Pantheon in Athens. The dollar is represented by the triangular plinth. The dollar holds the status of the world reserve currency and has done so ever since the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. It was then that it was crowned King Dollar. The world reserve currency status is important because it gives a currency superpowers which are hard to detect by first appearances. The world reserve currency requires that international trades are transacted in dollars. This artificially raises the demand for the dollar because every company that trades internationally is obliged to hold dollars in reserves in order to conduct trade. So, in summary, the petrodollar system and the world reserve currency status act as supports for the dollar. But more than that, they artificially raise the status of the dollar above all other currencies. Relative to other currencies, the dollar automatically ranks the highest. This is one of the major reasons why dollar and America have been preeminent in the world since the end of World War II. Returning to our analogy, when either of these columns fails, the dollar will come crashing down. It will collapse because it will lose all the remaining value it has. Both the world reserve currency status and the petrodollar system have been under attack in recent years. I should say there's a financial war taking place and has been going on for some time, although if you listen only to the MSM, you wouldn't know about it. Anyway, I think it's fair to say that the stones in both columns have taken a battering. They're looking rather decrepit. The world reserve currency status and the petrodollar system have ensured that most commonly used currency in international trades has been the dollar. At present, 40% of international trades are conducted in dollars. This figure has been in decline though. In times gone by, the percentage was higher. The market share is set to decline still further in the future. There's a commonly used aphorism, money is power. If we are to accept this as being valid, then we can say that the US has derived a great deal of power from the dollar's perceived status, but it's in the process of losing the power that it once had. So that's the Western side of things. I'll talk about the Eastern side of things in the next video. Wise up and rise up.